Hello everybody, Ben here from Hardcore Literature, and today we have a very special video because we will be finally unveiling the schedule, the syllabus for the new year, for the book club. These are the books we will be deep reading together as a community across 2022. I am so excited to share this with you today. It's been very difficult keeping it under wraps, but it's been a terrific year. The book club has gone so well. We have a wonderful group of the best people from all over the world, lovers of literature and lovers of deep discussion. This year we've had hours of content and deep discussion around books by Tolstoy, Dostoevsky, Jane Austen, Cervantes, Victor Hugo, Hermann Hesse, William Shakespeare, Marcel Proust, and many more. Members of the Hardcore Literature Book Club have seen immense benefits to their emotional, spiritual and intellectual well-being across this year. I've had endless heartfelt messages from students and academics who have seen their studies improve immeasurably. Regardless of what subject one is studying, many have seen the immense benefit of a reading program that focuses on great literature and discusses it with a great group. Members of the Hardcore Literature Book Club who have followed along with the reading program have also found themselves feeling more fulfilled, more content, more driven, happier, and this is by virtue of a more crystallized, more intense self-understanding. And indeed, it's not just ourselves that we understand, but it's others, because self-understanding leads to an understanding of others. A deep reading program, such as the one on offer with the Hardcore Literature Book Club, has had the result of sharpening our empathy, sharpening the way we relate to others, and it has improved our relationships over the course of the year. It's been a tremendous reading year, so my deep thanks and gratitude go out to the members of the book club who have made this magic possible. Let's have another magical year. We're going to get you to the point where once you have followed this deep reading program over the course of the year, by the end of the year you will be a completely changed person for the better. You will most certainly be more well read than ever before, more well read than 99.9% of the world, including academics. Anywho, let's talk about the schedule for the new year. I am so excited. Enough preamble, let's dive into the schedule. We're going to be aligning our reading with the seasons, and we're going to be taking our time with some tremendous books. As the book club continues to grow, the discussion gets deeper and richer, more insightful and more inspiring, and there will be supplementary lectures along the way to help you break into other art forms, other areas of thought. We're using the great books as a gateway not only to self-knowledge, self-understanding and an understanding of other people and the world and history, but an understanding of art and philosophy and music and many other areas of thought too. It's important that you know that the back catalogue is still there and is still attracting vibrant discussion. So if there's a book that has been on the schedule already and you're interested in it, the content's still there and the discussion is still there and it's still waiting for you. At time of recording, we now have a hefty back catalogue with hundreds of hours of exclusive content centred around the great books. Now, let's talk about 2022 and the curated reading experience. I am your tour guide through great literature. Let's dive into it. Starting with January, we will be kicking off the year strong with an easy read, an easy and fulfilling and rewarding literary conquest. Together, across 4 to 5 weeks, we will be deep reading Emily Bronte's Wuthering Heights. Running alongside this big read, and indeed the structure of the book club is that we have a big read on the go and then we have smaller pockets of literary exploration. In the new year, we'll be kicking off a deep dive into the plays of William Shakespeare. We will be reading Shakespeare consistently across the year and drawing nourishment from him. There's going to be 4 series, one for each season, in a new series of lectures called Shakespeare's Masterpieces, and season 1 is called Banquets of Blood. We will be starting off the year with a deep dive into Shakespeare's tragedies. The rationale behind the Shakespeare's Masterpieces series is that by the end of the year you will have read the Shakespeare plays that really count, the ones that you can really leverage, not only to an appreciation of the bard himself, but into every other book that you encounter. So we'll be reading the best of the best, the plays of the bard that give you the most bang for your buck. So for season 1, and we'll be reading a new play deeply every 2 weeks, we'll be kicking off with my favourite play of all time, indeed one of my favourite literary masterpieces of all time, King Lear. After King Lear, we will be reading Hamlet and Macbeth. This series is perfect for two kinds of reader. It's perfect for the newcomers to Shakespeare. If you've ever found yourself wondering what all the fuss about Shakespeare is, or wondering how to get into him. If you've struggled with him in the past, and indeed many of us have, school doesn't teach Shakespeare well, unfortunately. We're going to correct that. If you've wanted to get into Shakespeare, but you just don't know where to start, this is the perfect series for you. It's also tremendous for veterans of Shakespeare, those who are already great appreciators, great connoisseurs, great lovers of William Shakespeare and wish to get even more, to extract even more spiritual nourishment and value from Shakespeare. This is a personal heart piece from me. It comes straight from the soul. I absolutely love Shakespeare. He changed my life, so I'm going to be bringing a lot of passion and a lot of fire to these lectures. So we're going to be kicking off strong in the new year with King Lear and Hamlet and Macbeth, the first two being nearly unperformable. King Lear is emotionally overwhelming to insane degrees, and Hamlet is cognitively overwhelming. Both plays extremely demanding, but extremely rewarding. So the big read for January is Wuthering Heights, and we're reading Shakespeare too. If you haven't read Wuthering Heights before, it is tremendous. It is a masterpiece. It's also an easy read. We'll be reading into the symbolism of this book together. It's a great one to start with. And once we make it through Wuthering Heights and the first three of Shakespeare's tragedies, we'll be moving on in February to the next big read, one that I am so excited for. One of my favourite books of all time. We will be deep reading Herman Melville's Moby Dick together from February onwards, and this is going to be a deep read. 8 to 10 weeks are portioned out for this masterpiece, this leviathan of literature. This is where your appreciation of Shakespeare, your knowledge of Shakespeare is going to really come in handy, because Melville is a Shakespearean novelist. He reaches some insane heights. Although to call Moby Dick a novel is to do it a disservice, it is a very long, sprawling, prose poem epic masterpiece, and it will change your life. Many fear Moby Dick because it's really, really big, but the key to Moby Dick is to read it a page at a time, a chapter at a time. We're going to go on a journey together, and we're breaking into American literature. Last year we deep dived into Russian literature and French literature. Now we're cracking the American tradition, and it's going to be endlessly fulfilling. And whilst we're living Moby Dick together, we will embark upon and embrace the second series of Shakespeare's masterpieces. Series 2 is called Star-Crossed Lovers, and will involve an examination and appreciation of Romeo and Juliet, Antony and Cleopatra, and Othello. Herman Melville and William Shakespeare will take us into spring, and once we finish up with Moby Dick, though of course we've never truly finished with a book, if the book is really great, we should reread it endlessly, we should return to it, we should pull it apart, we should always have it on our bedside or on a shelf that we can access easily and quickly in order to bring it into the conversation with other books. But hey, once we've read 6 of Shakespeare's masterpieces, and we've read Wuthering Heights and we've read Moby Dick, our next big read will be the postmodern American masterpiece Blood Meridian by Cormac McCarthy. Modernism and postmodernism. We've done a lot of Victorianism, we've done Romanticism, and now we're going to learn to read literature that's a little closer to contemporary times. Blood Meridian, I must warn you, is a brutal bloodbath. It can be really difficult to stomach, so I have to give a little warning. It's very violent and it's very unnerving and a little bit traumatizing. It's also high art, high literature, it's thoroughly Shakespearean, thoroughly Melvillian if that's a word, and it is a wonderful read. The subtitle is Or the Evening Redness in the West. If you've ever wanted to learn a little bit more about Westerns, for example, if you've wanted to learn a little bit more about the American literary tradition, all of it, almost all of it, is housed in Cormac McCarthy's masterpiece. We're going to have a lot of fun with this in the spring of 2022. So spring, April, May onwards, will also include our first look to the classics. When we talk about classics, now we use the phrase interchangeably with any book that has become a classic, so we'll often designate books from the Victorian era, the 19th century, for example, as a classic. But technically, when we talk about the classics, we're actually talking about the ancients, Greek and Latin literature. We're going to start breaching this too. And our first series of lectures is going to be called Plato's Poetics, Reading the Republic as Imaginative Literature. So you're going to need a copy of Plato's Republic. Of course, we will be reading this as a philosophical tract, but we'll be doing something different, and we'll be seeing Plato as a playwright, a poet, as a writer of imaginative literature too, which is something that I haven't really seen done. So it's going to be very fulfilling, and it's going to help inform all the rest of our reading. And whilst we're deep reading Plato and Cormac McCarthy, we'll also be kicking off a new lecture series that will aim to give you an overview of the different movements and eras, the different epochs in literature. We'll be starting with modernism and postmodernism. This lecture series will help you get a handle on what characterises this movement, what makes a text modernist or postmodernist. And we'll be examining a wide variety of poems and plays and novels too, all under the umbrella term of that particular era. Over the course of the year, we'll go backwards and we'll examine other eras too, but in the spring, we're kicking off a lecture series on modernism and postmodernism, so you can get a handle on what exactly that means. Once we've finished with Blood Meridian, which will take us around 6 to 8 weeks, we'll then embark on our next big read, and we'll be hitting summer of 2022. And our next big read will be Samuel Richardson's Clarissa. This is a very, very long novel. It's up there with Proust's In Search of Lost Time for length and density, but it's also a remarkable piece of imaginative literature. It's also a masterpiece, and it's one of my personal favourite novels of all time. Reading Richardson allows us to examine the psychological complexity that was running through the novel at that time. It is the early novel, that's what we'll be examining, and we'll be able to see where Austen came from, where writers like Eliot came from. The psychological complexity of Samuel Richardson's Clarissa is unparalleled, except by Proust, perhaps. This writer was deeply influential. We're talking early novel form, and cracking this wonderfully enjoyable novel, because it is enjoyable. Cracking this novel gives you an insight into all of literature. You'll instantly become an expert on the novel form and character in the novel form. Clarissa most certainly is a novel that benefits from a guided reading tour, and it's going to be incredibly enjoyable. I find it to be a thrilling read. Very, very, very dramatic. It's early soap opera, and I think we're going to have a lot of fun with this one. It's going to be very illuminating. Can you see already we've got to summer? We haven't even got to halfway through the year, and if you followed this reading programme along, you have already become more well-read than ever before, because we're reading the best books with the best group as deeply as possible. The Clarissa lecture series is going to span from 10 to 12 weeks, and in the summer of 2022, June, July, we'll be reaching season 3 of Shakespeare's masterpieces, Midsummer Magic, which will involve a lively and loving group reading of A Midsummer Night's Dream, As You Like It, and Much Ado About Nothing. That's right, we've reached the comedies. July will also see our next Movements in Literature lecture, where we'll be deep diving into Victorianism. What is Victorianism? It will be very illuminating stuff, and it will set you on the path for wider exploration. Once we've read Samuel Richardson's Clarissa, we'll have another great novel that really benefits from a guided tour, a guided reading experience, and that is James Joyce's Ulysses. By this point in the year, you've become something of an expert on modernism and postmodernism and the different literary traditions. So, let's start mining what is slated as one of the most difficult books. I would actually contest his Finnegan's Wake to be more difficult. Ulysses is a grand novel. It's a jewel in Irish literature and modern literature, but it is very, very difficult. And we're going to be doing something very special, because we'll be pairing Ulysses with a series of lectures on another classical writer, Homer. A knowledge of Homer is integral to the understanding and appreciation of Ulysses, but also to the understanding and appreciation of Western literature as a tradition itself. We all trickle down from Homer and Shakespeare and then Tolstoy. So we need to gain an appreciation of Homer. It's time, the time has come. Our lectures will be examining the Homeric tradition and the influence that Homer's Iliad and Odyssey has had on writers through the ages. So we'll have a smorgasbord, a literary platter of different books and poems and pieces of literature that have been influenced by Homer. We're going to mark his tendrils of influence through the ages, and we're going to appreciate different parts of his two extraordinary epics. That's August, September time, and as summer comes to an end and we start to brace for autumn in the new year, we'll be reading Dracula by Bram Stoker. That's right, every Halloween we have a big read of a horror classic. This year it was Frankenstein. Next year it's Dracula. And we'll also have a smaller read running alongside it. This year was The Turn of the Screw by Henry James. And next year is going to be The Lost Stradivarius. A lot of people don't know this story, but it's an absolute gem, and we're going to appreciate it as the days grow darker. So, Dracula and The Lost Stradivarius, and we will also be continuing our ghost story writing tradition. Come November time in the new year, we'll be announcing our next Secret Dickens. We have erected a tradition, a literary group reading tradition, where each year, around the Christmas period, around November, December, the seasonal time, we read a Dickens novel. And we're attempting to read through his oeuvre over the long term. Members enrolled in the Hardcore Literature Book Club already know what this year's Dickens is and are excited. They're prepping their copies and they're getting ready for the group read at time of recording. But next year, we'll reveal the second big Dickens novel that we're going to read together. It's going to be a special experience. November will also see more movements in literature lectures, this time dealing with Romanticism. We'll be deep diving into an appreciation of the Romantic poets. Yes, we've already examined and enjoyed Keats and Shelley and Blake and many more, but we're going to keep going. And at the end of the year, we'll have season 4 of Shakespeare's masterpieces, Winter Romance, which will involve a deep reading and appreciation of A Winter's Tale, The Tempest, and Twelfth Night. And whilst all of this is going on, it's important to say that we'll still have lectures that are running on from this year, namely the Proust Project. That is an endeavour to read Proust slowly and deeply over the long term, using him as a springboard to wider aesthetic appreciation. It's a really fulfilling reading practice, and we already have tons of great content. That's going to continue. We have some spin-off series that are looking into the art of Proust. We'll also continue our deep reading of Middlemarch, which at time of recording we're gearing up for. We're going to be reading Middlemarch in the original serialised publication form. That's how it was intended to be read. It's a really special experience. Middlemarch is a wonderful novel. It really deserves a deep dive. It deserves a slow read across the course of a year. If you're interested in Middlemarch, then there's specific content on that. And we'll be continuing our journey through Shakespeare's sonnets. We're reading all of Shakespeare's sonnets chronologically over the long term, and we're getting a lot out of it. Now, whilst that might seem like a lot, and indeed it is, it's a very ambitious, deep reading program, it's completely doable. I'll be with you along the way, all the way through, and so will the fantastic group. It's important to say that self-pacing is key. Go at the pace that is most suitable to you, that you find the most rewarding, that fits your life and your goals with reading the great books. We have readers who took a year to go through Anna Karenina and are endeavouring to take a year through Les Miserables. That's wonderful because the discussion is always there. We always have people joining up and diving into the back catalogue. But some of the fun is definitely being there as it happens live. So come along for the journey. You'll be warmly welcomed by me personally and by the rest of the book club. We have a fantastic club at this point. I'm so grateful for everybody. We have people from all walks of life, all over the world, all backgrounds, all interests. There is no common thread except a deep love of literature and a yearning, a curiosity to explore the great books with a group. We couldn't ask for a better group. There is nowhere else that you can find this level of deep discussion and community centred around the great books. So, if you're already a member of the Hardcore Literature Book Club, you'll have a printable, downloadable schedule, and you'll have more videos, prepping you for the upcoming reads, walking you through which editions, scheduling, pacing, the themes to look out for, how to prepare. The great books, the other members, and myself are there waiting for you at patreon.com/hardcore literature. Joining the Proust tier gives you instant access to the entire back catalogue and the ongoing discussion. So thank you all so much for watching this video. Thank you for preparing to read more of the great books deeply with me. I really appreciate you. I appreciate that there are people who want this kind of education, this self-scholarship. There are people who want to read the great books deeply and get as much out of them as possible. We have the best community anywhere, and I'm very, very grateful. So, thank you for watching this. I hope the schedule has made you as excited as I am, and here's to another great reading year. I'm Ben from the Hardcore Literature Book Club. Thank you so much. Speak soon, and happy reading, everybody. Bye-bye.